What if the key to success, happiness, and deeper connections isn't intelligence or talent, but emotional mastery? This audiobook unlocks the secrets of emotional intelligence, revealing how to control your mind, influence others, and transform your life from the inside out. Ready to take control? Introduction. Imagine walking into a room full of people. Some are engaged in deep conversations, others laugh easily, and a few stand quietly, scanning the environment before deciding where to place themselves. Now, picture yourself in that room. How do you feel? Are you confident, ready to connect, and attuned to the subtle emotional undercurrents shaping the interactions around you? Or do you feel uncertain, unsure of how to navigate the social landscape, perhaps even overwhelmed by the complexities of human connection? The ability to read, understand, and influence emotions, both in yourself and others, is one of the most powerful skills you can develop in your lifetime. This skill, known as emotional intelligence, EQ, is at the very heart of personal and professional success. We live in a world where intelligence and technical skills are often celebrated as the key ingredients for success. But research tells a different story, one that places emotional intelligence at the forefront of what separates truly successful individuals from those who struggle to thrive. Studies show that EQ is a stronger predictor of success than IQ, playing a critical role in leadership, career advancement, relationship satisfaction, and overall well-being. Yet, despite its immense impact, many people remain unaware of what emotional intelligence truly entails, or how to develop it in a meaningful way. That's where this book comes in. Think Smart, Feel Smarter, the ultimate emotional intelligence playbook, is not just another self-help book filled with abstract theories or vague motivational advice. It is a comprehensive, actionable guide designed to help you not only understand emotional intelligence, but also apply it effectively in every aspect of your life. Whether you want to become a more influential leader, build deeper relationships, improve your ability to handle stress, or simply gain better control over your own emotions, this audiobook will provide the tools, strategies, and insights necessary to make lasting changes. But more importantly, this book is here to empower you. Emotional intelligence is not an innate trait reserved for the naturally charismatic or emotionally aware. It is a skill that anyone can develop with intention and practice. If you have ever struggled with self-doubt, found it difficult to express your emotions in a healthy way, or wished you could better understand the emotions of those around you, you are not alone. The good news? The ability to master your emotions, communicate with impact, and build meaningful relationships is within your reach. How emotional intelligence, EQ, shapes success. To truly grasp the significance of emotional intelligence, consider this. The most successful people in the world, whether in business, sports, politics, or personal relationships, are not simply the smartest or the most technically skilled. They are the ones who know how to navigate complex social dynamics, build trust, inspire others, and remain composed under pressure. They are the individuals who understand their own emotions deeply and use that awareness to make intelligent decisions rather than being ruled by impulse or unchecked feelings. In the professional world, emotional intelligence is often the X factor that determines who thrives and who merely survives. Studies have shown that high EQ correlates with greater job performance, higher leadership effectiveness, and increased earning potential. Organizations today seek employees who not only have the technical expertise, but also possess the ability to collaborate, adapt, and lead with emotional awareness. Leaders who are emotionally intelligent are better at motivating their teams, handling conflict, and making decisions that inspire loyalty and trust. They create environments where people feel valued, understood, and empowered to contribute their best work. Beyond the workplace, emotional intelligence is equally transformative in personal relationships. The ability to recognize and regulate your emotions, empathize with others, and communicate with clarity and compassion can be the difference between a thriving relationship and one filled with misunderstandings and resentment. Whether it's with a spouse, a friend, a family member, or even a stranger, EQ allows you to build deeper, more meaningful connections. And perhaps most importantly, emotional intelligence shapes your relationship with yourself. It allows you to break free from self-sabotaging patterns, silence negative self-talk, and develop an inner strength that remains unshaken by external circumstances. It is what gives you the ability to face challenges with resilience, handle stress with grace, and maintain a sense of inner peace even in the face of adversity. In short, EQ is not just a skill, it is a life philosophy, a way of thinking and being that enhances every aspect of your life. What to expect in this audiobook? This audiobook is structured in a way that provides both deep understanding and practical application. Each chapter is designed to explore a different aspect of emotional intelligence, building upon the previous lessons to create a holistic framework for EQ mastery. We begin by laying the foundation, what emotional intelligence truly is, how it works, and why it matters more than ever in today's world. From there, we dive into the 5 core components of EQ: self-awareness, the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions; self-regulation, the skill of managing your emotions and responding rather than reacting; motivation, the inner drive that keeps you focused and resilient; empathy, the ability to understand and relate to the emotions of others; social skills, the art of communication, influence, and building meaningful relationships. Each chapter is further broken down into practical strategies and real-world examples that will help you apply these concepts immediately. You will learn how to identify emotional triggers, manage stress effectively, enhance your ability to connect with others, and even develop leadership skills that make you a more impactful communicator and decision maker. But this is not just a book to listen to. It is a guidebook for action. Throughout the audiobook, you will find exercises, reflection prompts, and techniques that encourage you to actively practice what you learn. The goal is not just to understand emotional intelligence on an intellectual level, but to integrate it into your daily life in a meaningful and lasting way. How to apply the lessons for maximum impact. To get the most out of this audiobook, approach it with an open mind and a willingness to engage deeply. Emotional intelligence is not something you develop overnight. It requires patience, consistency, and self-reflection. Here are a few key ways to ensure you truly absorb and apply the lessons within these chapters. 1. Reflect regularly. Don't just passively listen. Take time to pause, reflect, and journal about the concepts you learn. Ask yourself, how does this apply to my life? Where can I improve? 2. Practice daily. Emotional intelligence is like a muscle. It strengthens with use. Challenge yourself to apply EQ principles in real-life situations. Whether it's choosing to listen more actively, managing a difficult emotion, or practicing empathy in a challenging conversation, every small effort adds up. 3. Seek feedback. The best way to gauge your progress is through the perspective of others. Ask trusted friends, colleagues, or mentors how they perceive your emotional intelligence and be open to their insights. 4. Embrace growth. This journey is ongoing. Be patient with yourself and recognize that emotional intelligence is not about perfection. It's about progress. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn and grow. By the time you finish this audiobook, you will not only have a deeper understanding of emotional intelligence, but also the tools and confidence to apply it in ways that transform your life. Whether you are seeking greater personal fulfillment, professional success, or stronger relationships, the path begins here. Welcome to your journey toward mastering emotional intelligence. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Power of Emotional Intelligence, the game changer you never knew you needed. If I told you that a single skill could transform your career, strengthen your relationships, help you make better decisions, and even improve your overall happiness, would you believe me? It sounds like one of those overhyped self-help promises, doesn't it? But this isn't about some abstract, feel-good concept. It's about something real, something measurable: emotional intelligence, EQ. You might have heard the term thrown around in business meetings, self-improvement books, or even casual conversations. Maybe someone told you, you need to work on your EQ? Or you've seen headlines about how emotionally intelligent people succeed where others fail. But what does it actually mean? More importantly, why should you care? Here's why. Emotional intelligence is the key to unlocking your full potential. It's not just about understanding emotions. It's about mastering them in a way that allows you to navigate life's challenges with clarity, confidence, and control. In fact, research shows that people with high EQ tend to earn more, lead better, experience healthier relationships, and recover faster from setbacks. Think of EQ as your personal superpower, the ability to read the room, understand others on a deeper level, manage stress effectively, and turn negative emotions into opportunities for growth. It's not magic, and it's not something you're either born with or without. It's a skill. And like any skill, it can be developed, sharpened, and refined. But here's the problem. Most people assume they're already emotionally intelligent. We think we know ourselves. We believe we understand others. We assume we're in control of our emotions. But are we really? If that were the case, why do so many of us struggle with impulsive decisions, misunderstandings in relationships, or workplace conflicts? The truth is, EQ is more than just being nice or self-aware. It's about deeply understanding the emotions that drive our behaviors and using that knowledge to navigate life with more purpose and power. And that's exactly what we're going to explore in this chapter. So, buckle up, because by the time you finish this, you won't just understand emotional intelligence, you'll start living it. What is emotional intelligence? Let's start with a simple definition. Emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions while also being able to recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others. It's what allows you to stay calm under pressure instead of reacting impulsively, communicate effectively even in difficult conversations, read between the lines and pick up on unspoken emotions, handle criticism without getting defensive, motivate yourself and push through challenges, build deeper, more meaningful relationships, make smart decisions by balancing logic with emotions. Notice something? EQ isn't just about emotions. It's about how emotions affect everything you do, whether it's making decisions, resolving conflicts, leading a team, or even handling personal struggles. Your emotional intelligence is always at play. Now, some people assume EQ is about suppressing emotions or pretending to be positive all the time. That's not the case. High EQ doesn't mean ignoring feelings. It means understanding and using them wisely. It means knowing when to express emotions and when to hold back. It's about knowing yourself so well that your emotions don't control you. You control them. And that leads us to an important question. Why does EQ matter more than ever today? Why emotional intelligence is more important than ever. Let's be real. The world we live in is more emotionally challenging than ever. We're bombarded with stress, information overload, and constant digital distractions. Social media amplifies emotions, making minor disagreements explode into full-blown conflicts. The workplace is becoming increasingly complex, with diverse teams working across different cultures, perspectives, and communication styles. And personal relationships? Let's just say that dating, marriage and friendships require more emotional skill than ever before. In a world full of automation and artificial intelligence, what separates humans from machines? Emotional intelligence. Think about it. Your technical skills might get you hired, but it's your emotional skills that will get you promoted. Your ability to communicate, manage stress, resolve conflicts, and lead with empathy is what sets you apart. Just look at the most successful leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals. The best CEOs aren't just intelligent, they're emotionally intelligent. They know how to connect with people, inspire teams, and make decisions that aren't just logical, but emotionally smart. And it's not just about success in the workplace. Studies show that people with high EQ experience greater life satisfaction. They're less likely to struggle with anxiety, depression, or chronic stress. They build healthier relationships, recover from setbacks faster, and even live longer. So, if emotional intelligence is this powerful, why aren't more people actively working to improve it? Why most people struggle with emotional intelligence. Here's the hard truth. We were never taught how to be emotionally intelligent. Think about your education. You learned math, science, history, and maybe even economics. But did anyone ever teach you how to manage stress? How to handle difficult emotions? How to resolve conflicts without escalating them? Probably not. Instead, we grew up with messages like, stop crying, toughen up, ignore your feelings, don't let emotions get in the way. The problem? Emotions are always in the way, whether we acknowledge them or not. So most people either 1. Suppress their emotions, which leads to stress, resentment, and burnout. 2. Let their emotions control them, which leads to impulsive decisions and conflicts. Neither of these approaches work, and that's exactly why so many people struggle with EQ. The good news? Emotional intelligence isn't fixed. You can learn it, you can develop it, and once you do, it changes everything. What's coming next? In the next sections of this chapter, we're going to dive deeper into the science behind emotional intelligence. You'll learn the 5 key components of EQ and how they work together, the fascinating way your brain processes emotions, how EQ compares to IQ, and why it might matter more, the biggest myths about emotional intelligence that are holding you back. But before we move forward, I want you to take a moment to reflect. How emotionally intelligent do you think you are? Do you handle stress well? Do you manage conflicts effectively? Do you truly understand your own emotions and those of others? Most people assume they're doing just fine until they start learning about EQ and realize how much they've been missing. And that's a good thing, because awareness is the first step to growth. Chapter 2. The 5 core components of emotional intelligence, your blueprint for mastery. If emotional intelligence is the key to success, fulfillment, and better relationships, the next logical question is, how do we break it down? What are its building blocks? You wouldn't build a house without a foundation, walls, and a roof. And you can't build emotional intelligence without understanding its fundamental components. Fortunately, the concept of EQ isn't vague or abstract. It's backed by science, carefully studied, and organized into 5 distinct yet interconnected pillars: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Think of these as the 5 fingers of your emotional intelligence hand. Each one serves a unique purpose, but together, they allow you to grasp life with clarity, control, and confidence. 1. Self-awareness, the foundation of EQ. Imagine driving a car without ever glancing at the dashboard. You have no idea how much fuel you have left, whether the engine is overheating, or if a warning light is flashing. That's how most people live, completely unaware of their own emotions, their triggers, and the patterns that shape their decisions. Self-awareness is your emotional dashboard. It's the ability to recognize and understand your emotions, not just on a surface level, but in a way that allows you to see why you feel the way you do, how those feelings shape your thoughts, and how they influence your actions. Highly self-aware individuals don't just know when they're happy, sad, frustrated, or stressed. They understand the root cause of those emotions. They recognize that stress isn't just about being busy. It may stem from deeper fears, such as a fear of failure or a need for control. They see that anger isn't just about the momentary frustration, but often a response to unmet expectations or unresolved wounds from the past. And because they understand their emotional landscape so well, they make far better decisions. But here's where most people go wrong. They assume they're self-aware. Studies have found that while 95% of people believe they are self-aware, in reality, only about 10 to 15% actually are. That means the vast majority of us are walking through life emotionally blind, making decisions based on impulses we don't even recognize. The good news? Self-awareness is a skill, and like any skill, it can be developed through intentional practice. Techniques like journaling, self-reflection, mindfulness, and seeking honest feedback from others can all help sharpen your ability to understand yourself at a deeper level. 2. Self-regulation, the art of emotional control. Have you ever said something in the heat of the moment that you later regretted? Have you ever let stress completely derail your day or allowed frustration to turn into a full-blown argument? If so, you're not alone. Most of us struggle with emotional control at some level. Self-regulation is the ability to manage your emotions rather than being controlled by them. It's the difference between responding to a situation with wisdom and perspective versus reacting impulsively and making things worse. People with strong self-regulation don't suppress their emotions or pretend they don't exist. They understand them and choose how to express them constructively. When they feel angry, they don't lash out. They take a step back, reflect, and respond in a way that actually solves the problem. When they experience anxiety, they don't let it paralyze them. They use it as fuel to prepare, plan, and move forward. At its core, self-regulation is about emotional agility, the ability to shift perspectives, calm yourself down, and make rational choices even when emotions run high. This skill becomes especially critical in high-stress environments, whether it's a challenging workplace, a conflict in a relationship, or a personal crisis. One of the most powerful tools for self-regulation is the pause. Simply taking a moment before reacting, whether it's taking a deep breath, stepping away, or counting to 10, can make all the difference in preventing regretful decisions and fostering better outcomes. 3. Motivation, the emotional fuel for growth. Most people think motivation is just about willpower or external rewards. But true motivation, the kind that drives lasting success, comes from within. It's the inner fire that keeps you going even when obstacles arise. And emotional intelligence plays a crucial role in shaping this inner drive. People with high EQ don't just chase fleeting success. They have a deep sense of purpose, passion, and resilience. Intrinsic motivation, the kind that comes from within, is one of the greatest predictors of success. While extrinsic motivation, like money, recognition, or praise, can push you forward in the short term, it's internal motivation that sustains long-term achievement. This kind of motivation is fueled by curiosity, a love for learning, a commitment to personal growth, and a willingness to embrace failure as part of the journey. So how do emotionally intelligent people maintain motivation when things get tough? They develop a growth mindset. Instead of seeing challenges as threats, they see them as opportunities. Instead of letting failure define them, they use it as a stepping stone. They don't just set goals. They connect deeply with their why, ensuring that their actions align with their values and long-term vision. 4. Empathy, the ability to understand others. If self-awareness is about understanding yourself, empathy is about understanding others. It's the ability to step into someone else's shoes, feel what they feel, and respond with understanding rather than judgment. And in a world that's increasingly divided, empathy is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Contrary to popular belief, empathy isn't just about being kind or compassionate. It's about truly listening, observing, and interpreting unspoken emotions. It's the skill that allows leaders to inspire their teams, partners to deepen their relationships, and individuals to navigate social situations with ease. But here's the catch. Most people aren't as empathetic as they think they are. True empathy requires more than just nodding along in a conversation. It requires active listening, reading body language, and resisting the urge to project your own emotions onto others. It means setting aside your own biases and being fully present. And in doing so, you build trust, connection, and understanding, qualities that make every relationship stronger. 5. Social skills, the art of connection. Finally, emotional intelligence isn't just about managing your own emotions. It's about interacting effectively with others. Social skills, the fifth pillar of EQ, determine how well you communicate, build relationships, and navigate conflicts. This is where all the previous components of EQ come together. Self-awareness helps you understand how you come across to others. Self-regulation keeps your emotions in check during interactions. Motivation keeps you driven in social settings, and empathy allows you to connect meaningfully. Great communicators, negotiators, and leaders all have strong social skills. They understand the power of words, tone, and body language. They know how to de-escalate conflicts, inspire confidence, and make others feel heard. But social skills aren't just for leaders. They're for everyone. Whether you're navigating workplace dynamics, building friendships, or strengthening romantic relationships, your ability to connect and communicate effectively can make all the difference. Bringing it all together. Now that you understand the 5 pillars of EQ, the next step is applying them. In the next chapter, we'll explore the science behind emotions and the brain, how your mind processes feelings, and why mastering this process is key to leveling up your emotional intelligence. By understanding the neuroscience of emotions, you'll be better equipped to take control, sharpen your EQ, and unlock your full potential. Chapter 3. The science behind emotions and the brain. Understanding what drives your feelings. Emotions feel personal, don't they? They seem like they belong entirely to us, arising from within, often without warning. But what if I told you that your emotions are not as spontaneous as they seem? What if they are, in fact, the result of a fascinating, intricate biological process, one that has been shaping human survival and social evolution for millions of years? Understanding emotional intelligence isn't just about improving how you handle emotions. It's about grasping why you feel the way you do, what's happening inside your brain when emotions arise, and how you can use this knowledge to gain better control over your emotional responses. The better you understand the science behind emotions, the better equipped you'll be to master them instead of being mastered by them. At the heart of emotional intelligence lies the brain. It's not just some abstract seat of intelligence. It's a living, pulsing organ filled with electrical impulses, chemical reactions, and complex networks designed to process emotions. In fact, emotions don't just occur randomly. They are triggered, regulated, and interpreted by specific regions of your brain, particularly the limbic system, the prefrontal cortex, and the amygdala. Understanding how these parts work together is crucial to mastering emotional intelligence. The limbic system, your emotional command center. Your emotions originate in the limbic system, a deep, ancient part of your brain responsible for processing emotions, forming memories, and regulating survival instincts. Think of the limbic system as your emotional command center, constantly scanning the environment and evaluating situations to determine whether something is a threat, an opportunity, or a neutral experience. It operates at a subconscious level, meaning it often reacts before you even realize what's happening. Within this system, two key structures play critical roles: the amygdala and the hippocampus. The amygdala is your emotional alarm system, a tiny almond-shaped cluster of neurons that detects threats, triggers fear responses, and processes strong emotions like anger and anxiety. Meanwhile, the hippocampus, which sits nearby, is responsible for forming and retrieving memories, linking emotional experiences to past events. This is why certain smells, songs, or places can instantly bring back powerful emotions. Your hippocampus stores these memories and recalls them when triggered. But here's the catch: the amygdala doesn't differentiate between real threats and perceived threats. If you were walking through a forest and saw a bear charging toward you, your amygdala would immediately activate your fight or flight response, flooding your body with stress hormones to prepare you for survival. But the same amygdala can react just as strongly to a snarky email from your boss or an argument with a loved one. Your brain interprets emotional discomfort the same way it interprets physical danger. That's why people overreact to minor situations, because to the brain, they don't seem minor at all. The prefrontal cortex, the CEO of emotional control. So if emotions originate in the limbic system, what keeps them in check? That's the job of your prefrontal cortex, the rational, logical part of your brain that sits right behind your forehead. If the limbic system is your emotional command center, then the prefrontal cortex is your brain's CEO, responsible for executive functions like decision-making, impulse control, and problem-solving. It's the part of your brain that evaluates situations, weighs consequences, and tells you, maybe yelling at your coworker isn't the best idea, or calm down before you respond to that text. When emotions surge, especially negative ones like anger, fear, or anxiety, the amygdala can overpower the prefrontal cortex, hijacking your rational thinking in what's known as an amygdala hijack. This explains why people often say or do things they later regret when they're emotionally overwhelmed. It's not just a matter of poor judgment, it's biology. Your brain is designed to prioritize emotional survival over rational thinking, which is why learning to train your prefrontal cortex to override emotional impulses is a core component of emotional intelligence. Fortunately, this isn't just theoretical knowledge, it's actionable. Studies show that practices like mindfulness meditation, cognitive reframing, and deep breathing exercises strengthen the connection between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system, allowing you to regulate emotions more effectively. The more you practice emotional self-awareness and self-regulation, the more control you gain over impulsive reactions. How emotions influence decision-making. Many people believe that emotions and logic are separate, that making rational decisions means eliminating emotions entirely. But neuroscience proves otherwise. Emotions aren't just irrational impulses, they are data. They provide valuable insights into what matters to you, alerting you to potential risks, guiding your instincts, and shaping your priorities. Consider this: patients who suffer damage to the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for regulating emotions, struggle to make even the simplest decisions. Not because they lack intelligence, but because they can't assign emotional significance to their choices. Without emotions, everything seems equally important, making decision-making nearly impossible. This means that emotional intelligence isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about understanding and integrating them into your reasoning process. People with high emotional intelligence don't just let their emotions dictate their choices. They use emotions as a guide, balancing feelings with logic. They recognize when their emotions are clouding their judgment, take a step back, and assess the situation from a more objective standpoint. They know how to differentiate between an emotional impulse and a well-considered response. The role of neurotransmitters, the chemistry of feelings. Emotions don't just exist in your mind. They are fueled by neurotransmitters and hormones, chemical messengers that influence how you feel. Understanding these chemicals can help you become more aware of how your brain shapes your emotional experiences. Dopamine, often called the reward chemical. Dopamine is released when you experience pleasure, achieve a goal, or anticipate something exciting. It drives motivation and reinforces positive behaviors. Serotonin. This neurotransmitter regulates mood, happiness, and emotional stability. Low serotonin levels are linked to depression and anxiety, which is why activities like exercise, sunlight exposure, and meditation can naturally boost serotonin levels. Cortisol. Known as the stress hormone, cortisol is released when you feel anxious, overwhelmed, or threatened. While short bursts of cortisol can help you respond to danger, chronic stress leads to consistently high cortisol levels, which can negatively impact mental and physical health. Oxytocin. Dubbed the love hormone. Oxytocin is released during moments of bonding, trust, and connection. It's what helps build strong social relationships, making it an essential part of emotional intelligence. Understanding the biochemistry of emotions allows you to take intentional steps toward regulating them. Simple practices like getting enough sleep, maintaining a healthy diet, engaging in physical activity, and fostering positive social interactions all influence your brain's chemistry, making you more emotionally resilient. Mastering emotional intelligence through brain awareness. Now that you understand the biological mechanics of emotions, the next step is learning how to train your brain to respond more effectively. Emotional intelligence isn't just about self-help techniques. It's about rewiring your neural pathways through consistent practice. Every time you pause before reacting, practice empathy, or choose a rational response over an impulsive one, you are literally reshaping your brain, strengthening the circuits that lead to better emotional control. Chapter 4. EQ versus IQ, which matters more? For generations, intelligence was measured by a single rigid metric, IQ, or intelligence quotient. The idea was simple. Your ability to think logically, process complex ideas, and solve problems could be neatly quantified with a test, and the higher your IQ, the more successful you'd be. Society revered high IQ as the ultimate predictor of achievement, believing that intelligence alone determined one's ability to thrive in life. But something wasn't adding up. Schools were filled with brilliant students who aced exams but struggled to work in teams. Workplaces were dominated by highly educated individuals who could crunch numbers but failed to lead or communicate effectively. Some of the most academically gifted minds in history lived in isolation, unable to form deep relationships or navigate social situations. The assumption that raw intelligence alone dictated success was beginning to crack. Then came a groundbreaking revelation. IQ is not the only form of intelligence that matters. In fact, research began to reveal that emotional intelligence, EQ, played a far greater role in determining success, both personally and professionally, than IQ ever did. The ability to understand, regulate, and use emotions effectively proved to be the hidden force behind strong leadership, personal fulfillment, and even financial success. Unlike IQ, which remains relatively fixed from a young age, EQ can be developed and strengthened over time. It became clear that the people who succeeded in the real world weren't necessarily the ones with the highest IQ, but those who could navigate emotions, their own and others, with skill, grace, and resilience. The IQ myth. Why high intelligence alone isn't enough to fully grasp the power of emotional intelligence. It's important to understand the limitations of IQ. Yes, having a high IQ can be an advantage. It allows for better problem solving, faster information processing, and stronger analytical skills. But raw intellect alone doesn't translate into success. Consider the many brilliant individuals who never reach their full potential, not because they lack intelligence, but because they struggle with emotional roadblocks. They may be prone to self-doubt, social anxiety, poor impulse control, or an inability to handle criticism. They may alienate colleagues, fail to inspire trust, or make rash decisions under stress. The truth is, intelligence without emotional control is like a car with a powerful engine but no steering wheel. It might move fast, but it's destined to crash. One of the biggest myths about IQ is that it determines long-term success. Studies have shown that after a certain point, a high IQ offers diminishing returns, meaning that someone with an IQ of 130 is not significantly more successful than someone with an IQ of 100 if they lack emotional intelligence. Employers, leaders, and psychologists alike have found that IQ alone cannot predict how well someone will perform in a job, handle adversity, or manage relationships. The real-world factors that drive success, such as leadership, collaboration, adaptability, and resilience, are all governed by EQ, not IQ. The power of EQ. Why emotional intelligence drives success. While IQ measures cognitive abilities, EQ measures emotional competency, the ability to recognize, understand, and regulate emotions in yourself and others. People with high emotional intelligence are more adaptable, more persuasive, and more capable of forming strong personal and professional relationships. They know how to stay calm under pressure, de-escalate conflicts, and connect with others on a deeper level. These skills are invaluable, whether you're leading a team, negotiating a deal, or simply maintaining a healthy relationship with your loved ones. Think about the most successful people you know, not just financially, but in all aspects of life. What sets them apart? Is it their raw intelligence? Or is it their ability to remain composed under stress, inspire confidence in others, and navigate challenging social situations with ease? The most influential and respected leaders throughout history were not necessarily the most intellectually gifted, but they were masters of emotional intelligence. They knew how to read the room, regulate their emotions, and make others feel valued and understood. These qualities don't just lead to better relationships, they lead to opportunities, career advancement, and personal fulfillment. How EQ impacts career success and leadership. In the professional world, emotional intelligence is often the defining factor between a competent employee and an extraordinary leader. Studies show that people with high EQ tend to earn higher salaries, advance more quickly in their careers, and have stronger professional networks. Why? Because the workplace is built on relationships, and relationships thrive on emotional intelligence. The ability to communicate effectively, resolve conflicts, and build trust is far more valuable than simply having a high IQ. Consider two employees at the same company. One is a brilliant strategist with an impressive resume, but he struggles to work in teams and comes off as arrogant and unapproachable. The other is equally competent, but has strong emotional intelligence. He listens attentively, manages stress well, and makes his colleagues feel valued. Who do you think gets promoted? More often than not, it's the person with high EQ. Leadership isn't just about knowledge. It's about inspiring and motivating people. It's about managing your own emotions and the emotions of those around you. A great leader can remain composed under pressure, deliver difficult feedback without damaging morale, and foster an environment of trust and collaboration. EQ and personal relationships, the key to deeper connections. Success isn't just about career achievements. It's also about personal fulfillment. And when it comes to relationships, EQ is everything. Think about what makes relationships thrive: empathy, communication, patience, emotional support, and conflict resolution. These are all skills rooted in emotional intelligence. A person with high IQ but low EQ might struggle to maintain close relationships because they lack the ability to understand and manage emotions. They may struggle with active listening, dismiss their partner's feelings, or react defensively in conflicts instead of approaching disagreements with empathy. On the other hand, someone with high EQ can build deep, lasting connections because they know how to navigate emotions with awareness and sensitivity. They understand that communication is about more than words. It's about tone, body language, and emotional nuance. They can sense when their partner is upset, even if nothing is said aloud. They recognize that a strong relationship requires emotional regulation, the ability to apologize when wrong, and the willingness to see things from the other person's perspective. This is why EQ is the foundation of meaningful human connection. Why EQ is more valuable than ever in the modern world. In today's fast-paced, high-stress world, emotional intelligence is more important than ever. Technology, social media, and digital communication have drastically changed the way we interact. People are more distracted, more anxious, and often less emotionally connected than in previous generations. We see a rise in workplace burnout, social conflict, and mental health struggles, not because people lack intelligence, but because they lack emotional resilience. The ability to regulate emotions, handle stress, and foster meaningful relationships is no longer optional. It's essential. Now, the big question is, can EQ be developed? The answer is a resounding yes. Unlike IQ, which remains relatively stable throughout life, EQ is a skill that can be improved with intentional effort. It's not something you're born with or without. It's something you cultivate through self-awareness, practice, and learning. The next chapters will dive deeper into the core components of EQ and practical techniques to strengthen them in your own life. Chapter 5. Common myths about emotional intelligence, separating fact from fiction. Emotional intelligence has been hailed as the key to success, the secret to strong relationships, and the missing piece in effective leadership. Yet, despite its growing recognition, many misconceptions surround EQ, leading people to either misunderstand its true power or dismiss it entirely. Some believe emotional intelligence is nothing more than being nice or overly emotional, while others assume it's an inborn trait, something you either have or don't. These myths create barriers to developing emotional intelligence, preventing people from unlocking its full potential in their lives. The truth is, EQ is neither a fixed trait nor a soft skill reserved for the overly sensitive. It is a critical ability that can be cultivated, strengthened, and leveraged for lasting success. Let's explore the most common myths about emotional intelligence and uncover the reality behind each one. Myth 1. Emotional intelligence is just about being nice. One of the most pervasive misconceptions about EQ is that it simply means being a kind, agreeable person. While kindness and empathy are certainly components of emotional intelligence, EQ is about much more than being nice. In fact, high emotional intelligence often involves making difficult decisions, setting firm boundaries, and handling tough conversations. Even when they might not be pleasant in the moment, people with high EQ don't just go along with whatever makes others happy. They navigate complex emotional dynamics with wisdom and strategy. They know when to be compassionate and when to stand their ground. They understand that being emotionally intelligent doesn't mean avoiding conflict. It means managing it effectively. Consider a leader who has to fire an underperforming employee. Someone with low EQ might do it insensitively, delivering the news coldly or aggressively. Someone who mistakenly believes EQ is about being nice might avoid the conversation altogether, allowing the problem to persist. But a truly emotionally intelligent leader would handle the situation with empathy and clarity, delivering honest feedback while maintaining respect for the individual's dignity. Emotional intelligence is not about being a pushover or suppressing difficult emotions to keep the peace. Instead, it is about recognizing emotions, both in yourself and others, and using that awareness to navigate situations wisely. It's about making the best long-term decisions, even if they require momentary discomfort. Myth 2. Emotional intelligence means being overly emotional. Many people mistakenly believe that being emotionally intelligent means being highly emotional, that people with strong EQ are constantly expressing their feelings, reacting intensely, or making decisions based purely on emotion. In reality, emotional intelligence is about managing emotions, not being controlled by them. It's about understanding emotions and using them effectively, rather than letting them dictate behavior. Someone with high EQ isn't the person who cries at every setback or becomes overwhelmed by their feelings. Rather, they are the ones who can acknowledge their emotions without being consumed by them. They recognize when frustration is clouding their judgment, when fear is holding them back, or when excitement might be leading them to make impulsive choices. They don't suppress their emotions, but they don't let them take over either. Think of EQ as emotional mastery rather than emotional indulgence. High emotional intelligence doesn't mean letting emotions run wild. It means being in control of them. It means having the ability to pause, assess, and respond strategically rather than react impulsively. People with strong EQ can feel deeply while still making logical, well-balanced decisions. Myth 3. Some people are born with EQ and others will never develop it. A common misconception is that emotional intelligence is something you either have or don't, that some people are naturally good at reading emotions and handling social situations, while others will always struggle. This couldn't be further from the truth. Unlike IQ, which remains relatively stable throughout life, EQ is a skill that can be developed, refined, and improved over time. Neuroscience supports this fact. The brain is highly adaptable, capable of forming new neural pathways through intentional practice and effort. Just as people can train their cognitive skills, learning new languages, developing problem-solving abilities, or improving memory, they can also train their emotional intelligence. Self-awareness, emotional regulation, and empathy can all be cultivated with consistent effort. Think of EQ like a muscle. If you rarely exercise it, it remains weak. But if you actively work on understanding your emotions, practicing self-regulation, and developing better communication skills, your emotional intelligence will strengthen over time. Through mindfulness, reflection, and learning from past emotional experiences, people can enhance their EQ and become more emotionally resilient. Myth 4. High IQ is more important than high EQ. For decades, society has placed immense value on intelligence, often measuring success by IQ scores, academic achievements, and technical skills. While intelligence is undoubtedly important, research has shown that EQ is often a stronger predictor of success than IQ. Many people with exceptionally high IQs struggle in personal relationships, leadership roles, and even career advancement because they lack emotional intelligence. Why does EQ matter more than raw intelligence? Because the ability to understand, influence, and connect with others is essential for success in nearly every area of life. A brilliant mind is of little use if it cannot communicate effectively, handle stress, or work well with others. Studies have found that leaders with high EQ outperform their counterparts with high IQ but low emotional intelligence. They inspire teams, build trust, and create positive work environments that drive long-term success. In the modern world, technical skills alone are no longer enough. Employers increasingly value emotional intelligence because they recognize that an employee's ability to collaborate, adapt, and manage stress has a greater impact on workplace success than IQ alone. Myth 5. Emotional intelligence only matters in personal relationships, not in business. Some people mistakenly believe that emotional intelligence is only relevant in social or romantic relationships, but not in professional settings. This couldn't be further from the truth. In reality, EQ is one of the most important factors in business success. Every workplace is built on relationships between employees, managers, clients, and stakeholders. High EQ enables professionals to handle workplace conflicts, navigate office politics, deliver constructive feedback, and inspire collaboration. It plays a crucial role in leadership, negotiation, teamwork, and customer relations. Consider two business leaders. One is highly intelligent, but lacks emotional intelligence, while the other has strong EQ. The first struggles to connect with employees, dismisses feedback, and creates a toxic work culture. The second fosters trust, communicates effectively, and builds a loyal, motivated team. Which leader is more likely to succeed? The answer is clear. Emotional intelligence is a game changer in business. Embracing the truth about emotional intelligence. Now that we've debunked these common myths, it's clear that emotional intelligence is not just a soft skill or a personality trait. It's a powerful, trainable ability that impacts every aspect of life, whether in personal relationships, leadership, business, or everyday decision-making. EQ is the foundation of emotional resilience, effective communication, and meaningful success. Emotional intelligence isn't about suppressing emotions or simply being agreeable. It's about understanding yourself, managing your reactions, and navigating the emotions of others with wisdom. It's about balancing logic with emotion, knowing when to listen and when to assert yourself, and making thoughtful choices that align with your long-term goals. Chapter 6. Defining self-awareness and why it matters. If emotional intelligence were a towering skyscraper, self-awareness would be its foundation. Without it, everything else, self-regulation, empathy, social skills, and motivation, would crumble under pressure. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize, understand, and reflect on your own emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. It's about knowing what drives you, what triggers you, what strengths you bring to the table, and what weaknesses hold you back. Many people move through life on autopilot, reacting to situations without ever stopping to ask, "Why do I feel this way? Why did I respond like that? What patterns am I repeating?" But those who develop self-awareness gain a remarkable advantage. They see themselves clearly, make better decisions, and move through the world with intention rather than impulse. Self-awareness is not just about knowing what makes you tick. It's about understanding how you impact others. Have you ever met someone who seems completely oblivious to how their words or actions affect those around them? Maybe they dominate conversations without realizing they're being overbearing. Or perhaps they lash out under stress but never stop to question why they're so reactive. Lack of self-awareness blinds people to their own patterns, often causing them to sabotage relationships, make poor choices, or remain stuck in cycles of frustration. On the other hand, those who cultivate self-awareness can recognize their blind spots, adjust their behavior, and take responsibility for their actions. At its core, self-awareness is about owning your emotions rather than being owned by them. It allows you to step back and observe your feelings with curiosity rather than judgment. Instead of saying, "I'm just an anxious person," or "I have a short temper, that's just who I am," a self-aware individual asks, "What triggers my anxiety? What fuels my anger? How can I manage these emotions rather than be controlled by them?" This mindset shift is powerful. It turns emotional intelligence from a vague concept into a tangible skill that can be sharpened and refined over time. The two types of self-awareness, internal and external. True self-awareness is a two-sided coin. On one side, we have internal self-awareness, the ability to understand your emotions, values, and personal identity. This includes knowing what motivates you, recognizing your emotional triggers, and being honest about your strengths and weaknesses. People with high internal self-awareness are deeply in tune with their emotions and make decisions that align with their core values. They know when they're feeling overwhelmed, when they need rest, and when they're avoiding something out of fear rather than logic. The other side of the coin is external self-awareness, the ability to see yourself the way others see you. This is just as crucial as internal self-awareness because it determines how effectively you interact with the world. Someone with poor external self-awareness might believe they come across as confident when, in reality, others perceive them as arrogant. They might think they're being assertive, but others experience them as aggressive. Without external self-awareness, it's easy to fall into the trap of assuming your intentions always match your impact. The most successful and emotionally intelligent individuals develop both types of self-awareness. They not only understand themselves from the inside out, but also remain open to feedback that helps them see themselves from the outside in. They are willing to ask, how do others experience me? How do my words and actions influence the people around me? What can I learn from the way others perceive me? This ability to balance internal reflection with external perspective is what sets emotionally intelligent people apart. Why self-awareness is the first step to emotional intelligence. Developing emotional intelligence without self-awareness is like trying to steer a ship without a map. If you don't understand what drives your emotions or how they influence your actions, you'll be constantly reacting to life rather than shaping it. Self-awareness is what allows you to pause and choose your response rather than being ruled by knee-jerk reactions. Think of a time when you overreacted to a situation. Maybe a small comment from a coworker sent you into a spiral of frustration. Maybe a delay in your plans made you unreasonably irritated. In the moment, it might have felt like the situation caused your emotions. But in reality, your interpretation of the situation is what fueled your response. Self-awareness allows you to step back and ask, what am I really reacting to? Is this about the present moment, or is it connected to something deeper? This is where the true power of self-awareness comes in. It helps you break free from unconscious emotional patterns. When you understand your triggers, you can disarm them before they control you. Instead of letting frustration dictate your actions, you can step back, regulate your emotions, and respond with clarity. This shift in mindset changes everything. It leads to better decision-making, healthier relationships, and a sense of control over your own emotional world. The connection between self-awareness and success. Many of the world's most successful leaders, entrepreneurs, and innovators share one common trait. They are highly self-aware. They understand what fuels their drive, what drains their energy, and what habits lead them to their best or worst selves. Self-awareness allows them to maximize their strengths while actively working on their weaknesses. It enables them to lead with authenticity, build strong relationships, and remain adaptable in the face of challenges. Take, for example, some of the most admired leaders in history. Whether in business, politics, or social movements, those who have left a lasting impact were not just intelligent, they were deeply self-aware. They understood how their words and actions influenced others. They knew when to step forward and when to step back. They had a keen sense of their strengths, but also acknowledged their limitations, surrounding themselves with people who complemented their weaknesses. On the flip side, some of the most catastrophic leadership failures have stemmed from a complete lack of self-awareness. Leaders who were blind to their own arrogance, insecurities, or emotional triggers made impulsive decisions that damaged companies, organizations, and even nations. The inability to recognize one's blind spots often leads to overconfidence, poor judgment, and ultimately, failure. This is why self-awareness isn't just a nice-to-have trait. It is an essential skill for long-term success. The path to greater self-awareness. The good news is that self-awareness is not a fixed trait. It's a skill that can be developed with intention and practice. In the upcoming sections, we'll explore practical tools and techniques to build self-awareness, from recognizing emotional triggers to using reflection and journaling as a self-discovery tool. You'll learn how to identify patterns in your thinking and behavior, break free from self-limiting beliefs, and develop the clarity needed to master your emotions. The journey to self-awareness is not always easy. It requires honesty, vulnerability, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself. But the reward is immense. When you develop self-awareness, you unlock a new level of emotional intelligence, personal growth, and success. You gain control over your reactions, make better decisions, and form deeper, more meaningful connections with others. Chapter 7. Recognizing emotional triggers. There are moments in life when emotions seem to surge out of nowhere, consuming our thoughts and dictating our reactions before we even have a chance to process what's happening. A simple comment from a colleague suddenly makes us feel defensive. A partner's innocent question triggers irritation. A minor inconvenience, like a delayed response to a text, sends our thoughts spiraling into frustration or insecurity. At the core of these reactions are emotional triggers, powerful subconscious buttons that, when pressed, can unleash a flood of emotions that may not always align with the present moment. These triggers are often deeply rooted in our past experiences, shaping the way we perceive situations and how we respond to them. Understanding our emotional triggers is a crucial step in developing self-awareness because it allows us to pause and ask, why did I react so strongly? Is this about the present situation, or is something deeper at play? Emotional triggers are not inherently bad. After all, they stem from our personal histories and deeply ingrained beliefs. However, when we remain unaware of them, they can control us rather than empower us. They can lead to overreactions, conflict, and even self-sabotage in relationships and careers. By identifying and unpacking our triggers, we regain control over our emotional responses, allowing us to navigate challenges with greater wisdom and emotional balance. Where do emotional triggers come from? Emotional triggers are shaped by our personal experiences, often originating from childhood, past relationships, or significant life events. These triggers can be positive or negative. Some things instantly lift our mood, while others provoke an intense emotional reaction that feels disproportionate to the situation at hand. Many of our triggers are tied to core beliefs, which are deeply held assumptions about ourselves, others, and the world. These beliefs develop over time based on what we have been taught, what we have experienced, and what we have internalized. For example, someone who grew up feeling unappreciated or ignored may have a strong reaction when they perceive they are being overlooked in a conversation. Even if the situation is neutral, perhaps a friend got distracted mid-story, the trigger activates a deeper emotional wound, leading to an outsized reaction of anger, sadness, or withdrawal. Another person, whose childhood was marked by harsh criticism, may become intensely defensive at even the mildest suggestion for improvement. These triggers are not about weakness. Rather, they are unresolved emotional imprints that continue to influence present-day interactions. Additionally, some triggers are linked to past trauma. People who have experienced betrayal, abandonment, or emotional neglect may have strong reactions to situations that remind them, consciously or unconsciously, of that pain. A lack of response from a partner may not simply be about the present moment, but rather about the fear of rejection or abandonment that was planted long ago. Recognizing where our emotional triggers come from is the first step in breaking free from their unconscious grip. Common types of emotional triggers. While emotional triggers are deeply personal, there are common themes that many people experience. Becoming aware of these patterns can help you recognize which ones may be influencing your own reactions. 1. Criticism or rejection. If feedback, even when delivered constructively, feels like a personal attack, this may indicate an underlying sensitivity to criticism. This often stems from a past experience of feeling judged, belittled, or not good enough. 2. Feeling ignored or overlooked. If being left out or not getting a response from someone stirs up strong feelings of frustration or sadness, this may be linked to past experiences of neglect or abandonment. 3. Loss of control. Feeling powerless in a situation, whether at work, in relationships, or during unexpected changes, can trigger anxiety, especially for those who have faced instability in the past. 4. Unfair treatment. A sense of injustice, whether real or perceived, can cause intense anger. This is especially common in individuals who have felt mistreated, underestimated, or disrespected in earlier experiences. 5. Being misunderstood. If someone constantly feels the need to explain themselves or prove their point, they may have a trigger around not being heard or validated, likely linked to past situations where their feelings or opinions were dismissed. 6. Failure or disappointment. For perfectionists or those who have internalized pressure to succeed, even small mistakes can trigger deep feelings of shame or inadequacy. 7. Boundary violations. If someone has a history of having their boundaries ignored or disrespected, they may react intensely when they feel someone is overstepping, even if the current situation is minor. How triggers impact our emotions and reactions. When a trigger is activated, the emotional brain takes over, often bypassing rational thought and leading to impulsive reactions. The amygdala, the brain's emotional center, is responsible for detecting threats, both physical and emotional. When we feel emotionally triggered, our amygdala interprets the situation as a threat, activating the fight or flight response. This is why a simple comment or an innocent oversight can suddenly feel overwhelming. For example, imagine you are in a meeting and a colleague challenges your idea. If you have an underlying sensitivity to criticism, your brain may register this as an attack rather than constructive dialogue. Without awareness, this trigger could lead to an impulsive response, perhaps snapping back defensively or shutting down entirely. Later, with a clearer mind, you might realize the response was unnecessary. But in the moment, the trigger dictated your reaction, not your conscious choice. The more self-aware we become, the more we can interrupt this automatic reaction. Instead of being hijacked by emotions, we can recognize, I feel defensive because this reminds me of past criticism. But in reality, this feedback is not an attack. It's an opportunity for growth. This shift allows for more measured, thoughtful responses rather than reactive ones. Strategies for identifying and managing emotional triggers. 1. Pause and observe your emotional reactions. The next time you feel a sudden surge of emotion, whether frustration, anger, sadness, or anxiety, pause and observe what just happened. Ask yourself, what was said or done that triggered this feeling? Becoming aware of these moments is the first step in recognizing patterns. 2. Trace it back to the root cause. Dig deeper. Ask yourself, when have I felt this way before? Often, emotional triggers are tied to past experiences, and understanding their origins can help weaken their intensity over time. 3. Reframe your interpretation. Once you recognize a trigger, try shifting the way you perceive it. Instead of assuming someone is ignoring you, consider, are they actually dismissing me, or are they just distracted? Reframing situations helps prevent emotional overreactions. 4. Develop self-compassion. Triggers often stem from old wounds, and healing them requires self-compassion. Instead of berating yourself for feeling triggered, acknowledge the emotion and remind yourself that it's okay to have these reactions, but they don't have to control you. 5. Practice emotional regulation techniques. Deep breathing, mindfulness, and grounding exercises can help calm the emotional response triggered by the amygdala, allowing the rational brain to regain control. 6. Communicate your triggers to others. If you are in a close relationship, whether with a partner, family member, or colleague, being open about your triggers can foster understanding and reduce conflict. Saying, "I know I tend to react strongly when I feel unheard, but I'm working on it," can open the door for healthier communication. Recognizing and managing emotional triggers is one of the most transformative steps in developing self-awareness. The more you understand what activates your emotions, the more power you have over your reactions. In the next section, we will explore how understanding your strengths and weaknesses further deepens self-awareness, helping you harness your greatest abilities while actively improving areas of growth. Chapter 8. Understanding your strengths and weaknesses. To truly cultivate self-awareness, one must go beyond merely recognizing emotional triggers and start examining the very fabric of their personality, their strengths and weaknesses. Many people assume they know what they excel at and what holds them back, but in reality, self-perception is often skewed by biases, fears, or outdated self-narratives. Some of us underestimate our abilities, never fully realizing the potential we carry. Others may overestimate certain strengths while remaining blind to the areas that require growth. Without a clear and honest assessment of our strengths and weaknesses, we risk making choices that limit our success, damage our relationships, or keep us stuck in cycles of frustration. Understanding your strengths allows you to leverage what you do best, build confidence, and make decisions that align with your natural abilities. It provides clarity on where you should focus your energy and how you can create the greatest impact. But just as importantly, understanding your weaknesses helps you navigate challenges with humility and awareness. A person who is unaware of their weaknesses often stumbles into the same pitfalls repeatedly, whether it's struggling with time management, avoiding difficult conversations, or reacting emotionally instead of rationally. By acknowledging these areas for improvement, you give yourself the power to develop strategies that compensate, improve, or delegate tasks accordingly. But self-awareness is not just about identifying these strengths and weaknesses in theory. It's about deeply understanding how they manifest in your everyday life. Are you naturally empathetic, but struggle with setting boundaries? Do you have strong analytical skills, but find it difficult to communicate ideas persuasively? Are you highly creative, but struggle with discipline and follow-through? When you take the time to reflect on these traits with honesty, you gain the ability to capitalize on your strongest qualities while taking deliberate steps to strengthen weaker areas. Why people struggle to recognize their strengths and weaknesses. For many, acknowledging strengths and weaknesses is an uncomfortable process. Society often conditions us to downplay our strengths out of fear of seeming arrogant, while simultaneously ignoring our weaknesses to avoid confronting areas of inadequacy. This paradox leaves many people uncertain about their own capabilities. They may feel like imposters in their careers, doubting whether they are truly skilled, or they may overcompensate by pretending to be stronger in certain areas than they actually are. Another reason people struggle with this self-assessment is that they rely too much on external validation or criticism rather than internal reflection. If you've been consistently praised for being intelligent, you might assume that intelligence is your defining strength, without considering how you actually apply it in real-world scenarios. Conversely, if you've been criticized for being too emotional or too passive, you might internalize those as weaknesses, without fully exploring how those traits may also be strengths in different contexts. To overcome this, it's essential to remove judgment from the equation and view strengths and weaknesses as neutral attributes, simply areas of natural aptitude or areas requiring growth. A strength is not inherently better than a weakness. Rather, it is something that can be harnessed for success. A weakness does not mean failure. It is simply an area that requires attention, adaptation, or support. When we embrace this mindset, self-awareness becomes an empowering tool rather than a source of self-doubt. How to identify your strengths? Uncovering your true strengths requires more than surface-level observation. You may already have a general idea of what you're good at, but to truly understand your strengths, you must look at them through multiple lenses. 1. Patterns of excellence. Reflect on times when you have excelled, whether in work, relationships, or personal projects. What common threads run through these experiences? Were you able to solve complex problems? Did you navigate interpersonal challenges with ease? Strengths are often revealed through repeated patterns of success. 2. What comes naturally to you? Many people overlook their strengths because they assume that if something feels easy to them, it must be easy for everyone. However, what feels effortless to you might be incredibly difficult for someone else. Pay attention to the skills and behaviors that come instinctively. Are you naturally charismatic? Do you have a sharp intuition for reading people? Can you organize chaotic situations with ease? 3. What energizes you? Strengths are not just about what you do well, but also about what fuels you. A true strength is something that, even when it requires effort, feels deeply rewarding and fulfilling. If certain tasks leave you feeling drained while others make you feel motivated, take note. Those energizing tasks often point to your core strengths. 4. Feedback from others. Sometimes, the people around us see our strengths more clearly than we see them ourselves. Ask trusted colleagues, friends, or mentors what they believe you excel at. Their perspectives can help validate strengths you may have overlooked or doubted. 5. Strengths in crisis. Pay attention to how you behave under stress. In challenging situations, your most ingrained strengths tend to surface. Do you become a problem solver, a motivator, a strategist, or a peacemaker? The way you naturally respond in high-stakes moments can reveal your deepest strengths. How to identify and manage weaknesses. While identifying strengths can be an uplifting process, acknowledging weaknesses requires courage and self-honesty. The key is to approach this process without self-judgment, understanding that weaknesses are simply areas that need refinement, adaptation, or external support. 1. Identify repeated challenges. If you find yourself struggling with the same issues over and over again, such as procrastination, difficulty with confrontation, or emotional impulsivity, these are signs of weaknesses that need attention. 2. Ask for constructive feedback. It can be difficult to see our own blind spots, which is why feedback from others is essential. Ask people who know you well to provide insights into areas where you could improve. The key is to receive this feedback with an open mind, rather than defensiveness. 3. Examine what drains you. Just as strengths energize you, weaknesses often deplete you. Tasks or situations that consistently cause stress, frustration, or avoidance are likely areas where you need improvement. 4. Recognize when weaknesses impact others. If certain behaviors cause tension in your relationships or workplace, take note. If multiple people have pointed out the same challenge, such as poor listening skills, difficulty delegating, or emotional reactivity, this is an area to work on. 5. Reframe weaknesses as growth areas. Instead of labeling weaknesses as flaws, view them as skills waiting to be developed. A lack of organization can be improved with structured systems. A tendency toward impulsivity can be managed with mindfulness. Every weakness is an opportunity for growth. Balancing strengths and weaknesses for growth. The ultimate goal of self-awareness is not to eliminate weaknesses or become overly reliant on strengths, but to create a balanced, intentional approach to personal growth. By harnessing strengths, you can maximize your potential, and by addressing weaknesses, you can prevent them from limiting you. The most successful individuals don't necessarily have fewer weaknesses. They simply know how to work with them effectively. They play to their strengths, seek support where needed, and remain adaptable in the face of challenges. Understanding your strengths and weaknesses is a lifelong journey, but the more you refine this awareness, the more control you gain over your personal and professional growth. In the next section, we will explore practical tools for deepening self-awareness, including journaling techniques, self-assessment exercises, and daily practices that help you tune into your inner world with clarity and purpose. Chapter 9: Tools for Building Self-Awareness. Developing a deep and accurate sense of self-awareness is not an overnight process, nor is it something that can be mastered through passive reflection alone. It requires active engagement, structured introspection, and a commitment to peeling back the layers of your mind, emotions, and behavioral patterns. Many people assume they already know themselves well enough, but without the right tools to uncover hidden blind spots, biases, and deeply ingrained habits, their understanding remains incomplete. True self-awareness is not merely recognizing how you feel in the moment. It's about understanding why you feel the way you do, what those emotions signal, how they shape your behaviors, and how your interactions with others reflect your inner state. It's about creating a clear, honest internal mirror that allows you to see yourself with accuracy, free from illusion, fear, or self-deception. To build this level of awareness, one must be willing to explore their thoughts and emotions from different angles, using techniques that reveal not only what is on the surface, but also what lurks in the depths of the subconscious. Some methods require solitude and deep contemplation, while others benefit from external perspectives and structured assessments. Below, we will explore some of the most effective tools for cultivating self-awareness, practices that, when applied consistently, will help you decode your own mind, recognize your patterns, and ultimately take control of your personal growth. The power of reflection, looking inward with intention. Reflection is the foundation of self-awareness, yet many people engage in it haphazardly. They reflect when something goes wrong, when emotions run high, or when they feel lost. But structured, intentional reflection is different. It is a daily practice, not a reactive one, and it requires more than just replaying past events in your head. The goal is to examine experiences with curiosity rather than judgment, asking deeper questions that lead to insight. Why did I react that way in that conversation? What was I truly feeling in that moment? What assumptions did I make, and were they accurate? How does this situation connect to a larger pattern in my life? When approached with a mindset of exploration rather than criticism, reflection becomes a powerful tool for self-discovery. One method of structured reflection is the 5 whys technique, a process of asking why multiple times to get to the root cause of emotions or behaviors. For example, if you feel frustrated at work, you might ask, why am I frustrated? Because my ideas aren't being heard. Why does that bother me? Because I feel undervalued. Why do I feel undervalued? Because I tie my sense of worth to external validation. Why do I do that? Because growing up, I was praised primarily for achievement rather than effort. By continuing to ask why, you uncover core beliefs and patterns that drive your emotions, allowing you to address them at their source, rather than just dealing with surface-level frustrations. Mindfulness and present moment awareness, observing without judgment. Mindfulness is one of the most powerful tools for self-awareness because it shifts focus from reacting to observing. Many people go through life on autopilot, responding to emotions as they arise without stopping to examine them. But mindfulness allows you to step outside of your immediate reactions and witness your thoughts and emotions from a place of neutrality. Instead of getting lost in anger, you notice, I am experiencing anger. Instead of drowning in anxiety, you acknowledge, anxiety is present right now. This simple shift creates distance between you and your emotions, giving you the clarity to examine them objectively. Mindfulness can be practiced in everyday moments, while drinking coffee, listening to music, walking outside, by simply bringing full attention to the present. However, structured mindfulness meditations deepens this practice further. Sitting quietly and observing your thoughts without engaging with them reveals habitual thought patterns. Do your thoughts gravitate towards self-criticism? Do you replay past mistakes or worry about the future? By noticing these tendencies, you gain insight into your mental landscape and can begin reshaping unhelpful narratives. Personality and behavioral assessments, seeing yourself through a new lens. While introspection is valuable, it's also limited by our own biases. That's why external assessments can provide valuable objective insights into personality traits, strengths, weaknesses, and behavioral tendencies. Personality tests such as the Big 5 personality traits, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI, or the Enneagram offer structured ways to understand how you process emotions, make decisions, and interact with others. For instance, the Big 5 personality traits, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, measure different dimensions of personality, helping individuals recognize where they naturally excel and where they may struggle. Someone high in conscientiousness may be disciplined and goal-oriented, but might struggle with adaptability. Someone high in neuroticism may be emotionally sensitive and empathetic, but prone to overthinking and stress. These insights are not meant to box people into labels, but to highlight tendencies that can be developed or managed for greater self-awareness. Another useful tool is the Johari window, a self-awareness framework that divides personal traits into 4 quadrants. 1. Open area, what you and others know about you. 2. Hidden area, what you know but others don't. 3. Blind spot, what others see but you don't. 4. Unknown area, what neither you nor others are aware of yet. By seeking feedback from others, friends, colleagues, mentors, you can uncover blind spots, traits or behaviors that you may not recognize, but that strongly affect your relationships and decision-making. The role of writing, journaling for deeper self-insight. Journaling is one of the most powerful self-awareness tools because it externalizes thoughts and emotions, making them easier to analyze. Writing forces clarity, helping you process emotions more effectively than just thinking about them. It also allows for pattern recognition over time. When you look back at journal entries, you may notice recurring frustrations, fears, or aspirations that provide insight into your core drivers and challenges. One of the most effective journaling techniques for self-awareness is stream of consciousness writing, where you write without filtering or censoring thoughts. This practice helps unearth subconscious emotions and insights that might otherwise remain buried. Another method is structured prompts such as, what emotion did I feel most strongly today and why? When did I feel most confident and why? What situations triggered frustration or insecurity, and what does that reveal about me? What are 3 things I learned about myself this week? Journaling consistently over time allows for a more profound understanding of emotional patterns and thought cycles, leading to greater self-awareness. Self-awareness is not a destination. It is a continuous process of reflection, observation, and adjustment. The tools outlined here, intentional reflection, mindfulness, external assessments, feedback, and journaling, are not one-time exercises, but lifelong practices that deepen over time. By consistently engaging in these methods, you begin to understand not just who you are, but why you behave the way you do, how your emotions shape your choices, and how you can align your actions with your core values. This level of awareness is the key to mastering emotional intelligence, fostering better relationships, and making choices that lead to a more fulfilling and intentional life. In the next section, we will explore how journaling and reflection techniques can further refine and strengthen self-awareness, providing practical steps to integrate these practices into daily life. Chapter 10: Journaling and Reflection Techniques. Self-awareness is a skill, not an innate trait that some people are simply born with. It is developed through intentional effort, introspection, and the willingness to examine one's thoughts and emotions with clarity and honesty. One of the most powerful tools for cultivating self-awareness is the practice of journaling and structured reflection. Writing is more than just a way to record thoughts. It is a method of externalizing emotions, organizing complex inner experiences, and making sense of subconscious patterns that influence your behavior. When you take the time to articulate your feelings on paper, you create space between your thoughts and your sense of self, allowing you to analyze them with greater objectivity. This process leads to deep insights that would otherwise remain buried under the daily noise of life. Journaling provides the opportunity to track emotional patterns, recognize recurring themes in your thoughts, and identify triggers that shape your reactions. It also serves as a mirror for your inner dialogue, revealing whether your self-talk is supportive or destructive. Many people go through life unaware of how much their internal narrative shapes their experiences, whether they constantly criticize themselves, make excuses, or focus on perceived failures. When these thoughts are written down and revisited, their influence becomes clear, allowing you to consciously reshape your mindset and develop a healthier relationship with yourself. But simply writing in a diary about daily events is not enough. To maximize self-awareness, journaling should be structured, intentional, and reflective. This means asking the right questions, using specific techniques, and reviewing past entries to gain deeper insights into your personal growth. The power of free writing: unlocking subconscious patterns. One of the most effective journaling techniques for self-awareness is free writing, also known as stream of consciousness writing. This method involves setting a timer, typically for 10 to 20 minutes, and writing continuously without pausing, editing, or censoring your thoughts. The goal is not to create polished prose, but to allow your mind to spill onto the page without restriction. By bypassing your inner critic, free writing often reveals hidden emotions, suppressed fears, and deep-seated beliefs that you might not have been consciously aware of. Many people find that the first few minutes of free writing produce surface-level thoughts: what happened that day, immediate frustrations, or random observations. But as they continue writing, deeper layers of emotion begin to emerge. Old memories resurface, unresolved conflicts become clear, and sudden realizations appear seemingly out of nowhere. This happens because the mind, when given permission to wander freely, connects ideas and feelings in unexpected ways, offering profound insights that structured thinking often misses. To make the most of this practice, it's important to avoid filtering or overanalyzing while writing. Just let the words flow. Afterward, reading what you wrote with an open mind can provide powerful revelations about your emotional state, habitual thought patterns, and the areas of your life that need attention. Prompt-based reflection: asking the right questions. While free writing is valuable for unearthing subconscious thoughts, structured reflection using specific prompts can guide your self-awareness in a more targeted direction. Thought-provoking questions encourage deeper introspection and help you analyze why you feel the way you do, what drives your decisions, and how your emotions influence your interactions with others. Below are some highly effective journaling prompts that can enhance self-awareness. Self-awareness is not a destination. It is a continuous process of reflection, observation, and adjustment. The tools outlined here: intentional reflection, mindfulness, external assessments, feedback, and journaling, are not one-time exercises, but lifelong practices that deepen over time. By consistently engaging in these methods, you begin to understand not just who you are, but why you behave the way you do, how your emotions shape your choices, and how you can align your actions with your core values. This level of awareness is the key to mastering emotional intelligence, fostering better relationships, and making choices that lead to a more fulfilling and intentional life. In the next section, we will explore how journaling and reflection techniques can further refine and strengthen self-awareness, providing practical steps to integrate these practices into daily life. Chapter 10: Journaling and Reflection Techniques. Self-awareness is a skill, not an innate trait that some people are simply born with. It is developed through intentional effort, introspection, and the willingness to examine one's thoughts and emotions with clarity and honesty. One of the most powerful tools for cultivating self-awareness is the practice of journaling and structured reflection. Writing is more than just a way to record thoughts. It is a method of externalizing emotions, organizing complex inner experiences, and making sense of subconscious patterns that influence your behavior. When you take the time to articulate your feelings on paper, you create space between your thoughts and your sense of self, allowing you to analyze them with greater objectivity. This process leads to deep insights that would otherwise remain buried under the daily noise of life. Journaling provides the opportunity to track emotional patterns, recognize recurring themes in your thoughts, and identify triggers that shape your reactions. It also serves as a mirror for your inner dialogue, revealing whether your self-talk is supportive or destructive. Many people go through life unaware of how much their internal narrative shapes their experiences, whether they constantly criticize themselves, make excuses, or focus on perceived failures. When these thoughts are written down and revisited, their influence becomes clear, allowing you to consciously reshape your mindset and develop a healthier relationship with yourself. But simply writing in a diary about daily events is not enough. To maximize self-awareness, journaling should be structured, intentional, and reflective. This means asking the right questions, using specific techniques, and reviewing past entries to gain deeper insights into your personal growth. The power of free writing: unlocking subconscious patterns. One of the most effective journaling techniques for self-awareness is free writing, also known as stream of consciousness writing. This method involves setting a timer, typically for 10 to 20 minutes, and writing continuously without pausing, editing, or censoring your thoughts. The goal is not to create polished prose, but to allow your mind to spill onto the page without restriction. By bypassing your inner critic, free writing often reveals hidden emotions, suppressed fears, and deep-seated beliefs that you might not have been consciously aware of. Many people find that the first few minutes of free writing produce surface-level thoughts, what happened that day, immediate frustrations, or random observations. But as they continue writing, deeper layers of emotion begin to emerge. Old memories resurface, unresolved conflicts become clear, and sudden realizations appear seemingly out of nowhere. This happens because the mind, when given permission to wander freely, connects ideas and feelings in unexpected ways, offering profound insights that structured thinking often misses. To make the most of this practice, it's important to avoid filtering or overanalyzing while writing. Just let the words flow. Afterward, reading what you wrote with an open mind can provide powerful revelations about your emotional state, habitual thought patterns, and the areas of your life that need attention. Prompt-based reflection: asking the right questions. While free writing is valuable for unearthing subconscious thoughts, structured reflection using specific prompts can guide your self-awareness in a more targeted direction. Thought-provoking questions encourage deeper introspection and help you analyze why you feel the way you do, what drives your decisions, and how your emotions influence your interactions with others. Below are some highly effective journaling prompts that can enhance self-awareness. Emotions are powerful forces that shape our experiences, guide our decisions, and influence how we interact with the world. They are the undercurrent of our thoughts, the pulse behind our words, and the silent architects of our actions. However, when left unchecked, emotions can just as easily become destructive, leading us into conflicts, clouding our judgment, and driving us to react impulsively in ways that we later regret. The ability to regulate emotions is not about suppressing or ignoring them. Rather, it is about mastering them, understanding their origins, acknowledging their impact, and directing them in ways that serve rather than hinder us. Self-regulation is the discipline of emotional intelligence, the skill that allows us to pause between impulse and action, ensuring that our emotions do not dictate our behaviors, but instead inform them wisely. Think about the last time you acted purely on emotion. Perhaps you snapped at a colleague in frustration, sent an impulsive text in anger, or avoided a difficult conversation out of fear. In those moments, emotions overpowered logic, and the immediate desire for relief overshadowed the long-term consequences of your actions. While these reactions are natural, they are also counterproductive. Emotional control is crucial because it determines our ability to navigate challenges with resilience, maintain strong relationships, and make decisions that align with our values rather than momentary feelings. A lack of self-regulation not only leads to regrettable actions, but also creates patterns of self-sabotage, destroying trust, limiting professional growth, and eroding self-confidence. When emotions are in control of us, they can make us prisoners of our own reactivity. But when we learn to control them, we reclaim our power. One of the biggest misconceptions about emotional regulation is that it requires suppressing emotions altogether, as if feeling too much is a sign of weakness. In reality, emotionally intelligent individuals experience emotions just as deeply as anyone else, but they do not allow those emotions to dictate their behavior unconsciously. Instead, they develop the ability to recognize emotions as signals, indicators that something within them requires attention. Rather than being consumed by anger, they ask, "What is this anger telling me?" Rather than drowning in anxiety, they consider, "What fear is beneath this worry?" By treating emotions as data rather than commands, they learn to process their inner experiences without being controlled by them. This is the essence of self-regulation, acknowledging emotions fully, yet responding to them with intentionality and wisdom. The importance of emotional control extends beyond individual well-being. It has a profound impact on how we interact with others. In professional settings, the ability to remain composed under pressure is often the defining trait of successful leaders, negotiators, and decision-makers. A manager who can regulate their frustration when a project goes off track will foster a culture of problem-solving rather than blame. A salesperson who can manage their anxiety in high-stakes meetings will project confidence and credibility. A team member who can navigate workplace stress without lashing out will build strong relationships and earn the respect of colleagues. In contrast, those who lack self-regulation create environments of unpredictability, where emotional volatility erodes trust and cooperation. Emotional control is the foundation of influence. When people see that you can handle adversity with grace, they are more likely to trust you, follow your lead, and seek your guidance. In personal relationships, emotional regulation determines the depth of connection and the resilience of bonds. Conflict is inevitable in any close relationship, but it is not conflict itself that destroys connections. It is how people handle their emotions during and after conflicts that determines the outcome. A partner who can regulate their anger will communicate rather than attack, listen rather than react defensively, and seek resolution rather than retaliation. Parents who model self-regulation teach their children emotional intelligence by example, showing them that frustration can be managed without yelling, that disappointment does not have to lead to withdrawal, and that emotions are tools rather than weapons. The ability to regulate emotions strengthens trust, deepens empathy, and ensures that temporary frustrations do not turn into lasting wounds. Furthermore, self-regulation is essential for mental and physical well-being. Chronic stress, anxiety, and emotional instability take a toll on the body, contributing to conditions such as high blood pressure, heart disease, and weakened immune function. When emotions are left unchecked, they can create a cycle of stress that perpetuates itself. Anger leads to tense muscles, anxiety leads to shallow breathing, and prolonged emotional distress weakens resilience over time. However, when we cultivate emotional regulation, we break this cycle. By learning to manage emotions rather than being overwhelmed by them, we create a state of inner balance that supports both psychological and physiological health. The ability to calm oneself in moments of distress, to shift emotional states consciously, and to cultivate positive emotions intentionally are not just skills for personal development. They are essential components of holistic well-being. Mastering emotional control does not mean never feeling upset, frustrated, or overwhelmed. It means knowing how to navigate these emotions without being consumed by them. It means developing the patience to pause before reacting, the clarity to separate feelings from facts, and the wisdom to choose responses that align with long-term goals rather than short-term impulses. Self-regulation is a practice, not a switch that can be flipped instantly. It requires daily effort, self-awareness, and a commitment to growth. The good news is that emotional regulation is a skill that can be developed by anyone, regardless of temperament or past habits. Through mindfulness, self-reflection, and specific techniques that we will explore in the following sections, you can build the ability to remain composed in the face of challenges, to direct your emotions with purpose, and to harness the power of self-regulation in every aspect of your life. As we move forward in this chapter, we will break down practical strategies for emotional control, beginning with the power of the pause, the ability to create space between emotion and action. This simple yet transformative practice is the foundation of self-regulation, allowing us to shift from reactive to intentional responses in every situation. Understanding emotional control is only the first step. Learning how to apply it effectively is where real change begins. Let's explore how to develop the mental discipline and emotional awareness that will allow you to master your emotions, rather than being mastered by them. Chapter 12. The Power of Pause: How to Respond, Not React. In the split second between stimulus and response lies one of the most powerful choices you can ever make: the choice to pause. It sounds deceptively simple, but this ability, the power of the pause, is the foundation of self-regulation. When emotions surge, when frustration bubbles up, when anger flares, or anxiety tightens its grip, the natural human tendency is to react instantly, driven by the raw force of emotion. But in that automatic reaction, we surrender control. We let anger dictate our words, fear dictate our choices, or frustration dictate our actions. The pause, however, is where emotional intelligence comes into play. It is the moment when we step out of our immediate reaction and into intentionality, where we make the shift from being controlled by emotions to consciously guiding them. The ability to pause, just for a breath, a beat, a moment, before responding, can be the difference between a destructive outburst and a measured, thoughtful response. Consider a scenario that has likely played out in some form in your life. You receive an email that instantly triggers frustration. Maybe it's a colleague dismissing your hard work, a boss criticizing your approach, or a client making unfair demands. Your first instinct might be to fire off a reply filled with sharp words, to immediately defend yourself, to push back against the perceived attack. But what happens when you act on that impulse? More often than not, an emotionally charged reaction escalates the situation, creating conflict rather than resolution. Now imagine an alternate approach, one where, instead of reacting immediately, you take a deep breath, step away for a few moments, and allow yourself to process the situation with clarity. That single pause creates space for reason to enter the equation. Instead of reacting defensively, you can choose to respond thoughtfully, articulating your perspective in a way that fosters understanding rather than hostility. The power of pause is not just about avoiding regretful reactions. It is about reclaiming control over your emotional state. When you pause, even for a few seconds, you disrupt the automatic patterns of emotional reactivity that have been hardwired into your brain. Neuroscience tells us that strong emotional reactions originate in the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, which is designed to trigger immediate responses to perceived threats. This served our ancestors well when faced with physical dangers. Hesitation in front of a predator could mean death. But in the modern world, our perceived threats are often psychological rather than physical. A critical remark, a disappointing outcome, a stressful deadline. These do not require the fight or flight response, yet our brains often treat them as if they do. The pause is what allows the more rational, reflective part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, to regain control. This part of the brain enables higher-order thinking, problem-solving, and long-term decision-making. By creating space between emotion and action, we give ourselves the opportunity to shift from primitive reactivity to thoughtful intention. Beyond preventing emotional outbursts, mastering the pause allows us to engage in a deeper level of self-awareness. When we pause, we give ourselves the chance to ask key questions. What am I really feeling right now? What is the root cause of this emotion? Is my reaction justified? Or am I projecting my own fears, insecurities, or past experiences onto the situation? Often, our initial emotional reactions are based not just on the present moment, but on layers of past experiences, unresolved feelings, and deep-seated beliefs. That email that made you so angry? Perhaps it's not just about the message itself, but about a history of feeling unappreciated. That moment of anxiety before a presentation? Perhaps it's tied to a childhood fear of being judged. When we react immediately, we bypass this introspection. But when we pause, we open the door to understanding ourselves at a deeper level. Pausing is a skill that can be cultivated, and there are several techniques that can help reinforce this habit in daily life. One of the simplest, yet most effective, is the practice of conscious breathing. When faced with a surge of emotion, take a slow, deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and then exhale just as slowly. This deliberate act forces the mind to slow down, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which counteracts stress responses, and creates a physiological shift that promotes calmness. Another technique is labeling your emotions, a practice grounded in psychology that involves consciously identifying what you are feeling in the moment. Instead of saying, "I'm just upset," articulate, "I feel frustrated because my expectations weren't met." Research shows that simply naming an emotion reduces its intensity, allowing the brain to process it more rationally. By acknowledging what you feel without immediately acting on it, you gain power over your emotions rather than letting them control you. Another powerful strategy is the 10-second rule. Before responding to any emotionally charged situation, commit to waiting at least 10 seconds before speaking or acting. This simple rule forces a pause, creating a buffer that prevents impulsive reactions. In moments of anger, counting to 10 before responding can mean the difference between escalating a conflict and de-escalating it. In moments of stress, those 10 seconds can provide the clarity needed to avoid making a rash decision. Over time, this practice strengthens the neural pathways associated with self-regulation, making it easier to pause instinctively rather than react automatically. For long-term mastery of emotional regulation, mindfulness practices such as meditation and journaling can be transformative. Meditation trains the mind to observe thoughts and emotions without immediately acting on them, cultivating a habit of detachment that enhances self-regulation. Journaling, on the other hand, allows for reflection after the fact, providing insight into emotional patterns and triggers. By writing down situations where you struggled with self-regulation and analyzing them later, you create an ongoing process of self-improvement. What emotions came up? What triggered them? How did you respond? What could you have done differently? This level of introspection turns self-regulation into a continuous journey of refinement and growth. Ultimately, the power of pause is about strengthening the muscle of emotional discipline. Just as an athlete trains their body to perform under pressure, emotionally intelligent individuals train their minds to remain steady in the face of intense emotions. The more you practice pausing before reacting, the more natural it becomes, transforming from a conscious effort into an automatic response. This does not mean suppressing emotions or avoiding confrontation. It means engaging with emotions in a way that serves your long-term well-being, rather than undermining it. When you master the pause, you create space for clarity, wisdom, and intentionality, allowing you to navigate life's challenges with grace and resilience. As we move forward in this chapter, we will explore techniques for managing negative emotions effectively, breaking down strategies for handling anger, anxiety, frustration, and stress in ways that empower rather than debilitate. Emotional control is not about eliminating emotions. It is about learning to work with them in a way that enhances rather than hinders your life. The next step is to equip yourself with the tools to transform difficult emotions into opportunities for growth, ensuring that even in moments of distress, you remain in control of your responses and your path forward. Chapter 13. Techniques for managing negative emotions. Negative emotions are an inevitable part of life. No matter how emotionally intelligent or self-aware a person is, they will still experience anger, frustration, disappointment, anxiety, and sadness. These emotions are not signs of weakness or failure. Rather, they are essential signals that offer insight into our inner world, revealing unmet needs, unresolved conflicts, and personal boundaries that may have been crossed. However, while negative emotions are natural, how we handle them determines the quality of our relationships, the effectiveness of our decision-making, and our overall well-being. Unmanaged emotions can lead to impulsive actions, self-destructive patterns, and unnecessary conflicts, while the ability to regulate these emotions can lead to emotional resilience, self-mastery, and an increased sense of control over life's challenges. Managing negative emotions is not about suppression or avoidance. It is about understanding them, processing them constructively, and transforming them into catalysts for growth. One of the most effective techniques for managing negative emotions is cognitive reframing, a powerful psychological tool that involves shifting your perspective on a situation to change how you feel about it. The way we interpret events determines our emotional response, which means that changing our interpretation can significantly alter our emotional experience. For example, imagine that a friend cancels plans at the last minute. Your immediate reaction might be disappointment or frustration, interpreting their cancellation as a lack of care or respect. However, if you take a moment to reframe the situation, you might consider that they could be overwhelmed, dealing with personal struggles, or simply in need of rest. By choosing to see the situation differently, you shift your emotional response from resentment to understanding. Cognitive reframing does not mean ignoring problems or making excuses for others. It simply means looking for a perspective that allows you to respond in a way that is healthier and more constructive. Another essential technique for emotional management is naming and labeling emotions. Often, negative emotions feel overwhelming because they seem vague and undefined, creating a sense of inner chaos. Neuroscientific research has shown that when people consciously name their emotions, saying, for example, "I am feeling anxious because I fear failure," or "I am feeling angry because I feel disrespected," the intensity of those emotions decreases. This is because labeling an emotion activates the rational parts of the brain, allowing for greater emotional processing. Instead of simply feeling overwhelmed, you begin to understand the root cause of your feelings, making them easier to address. The next time you experience a wave of negativity, take a moment to pause and name what you are feeling. Be as specific as possible. Instead of generalizing, "I feel bad," try to pinpoint whether you feel disappointed, rejected, ashamed, or frustrated. This small shift in awareness can be the first step toward managing the emotion effectively. For those struggling with overwhelming emotions, grounding techniques can serve as immediate interventions to bring stability and clarity to the moment. Grounding techniques are particularly useful during moments of high stress, panic, or emotional overwhelm, as they help shift focus away from distressing thoughts and into the present moment. One of the most effective grounding exercises is the 5-4-3-2-1 method, which involves engaging the 5 senses to create a sense of calm. In moments of emotional distress, pause and identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This method works by anchoring attention to the physical world, preventing the mind from spiraling into destructive thought patterns. Another powerful grounding technique is progressive muscle relaxation, PMR, where you systematically tense and then release each muscle group in the body, starting from your toes and working up to your head. This technique not only relieves physical tension, but also signals to the brain that it is safe to relax, reducing stress and anxiety. Breathwork is another invaluable tool for managing negative emotions, particularly those rooted in anxiety and stress. The connection between breath and emotion is deeply embedded in human physiology. When emotions run high, breathing tends to become shallow and rapid, triggering the body's fight or flight response. However, by consciously controlling breath patterns, it is possible to reverse this physiological response and induce a state of calm. One of the simplest and most effective breathwork techniques is the 4-7-8 breathing method, in which you inhale deeply for 4 seconds, hold the breath for 7 seconds, and exhale slowly for 8 seconds. This type of controlled breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which counteracts stress and promotes relaxation. Practicing breathwork regularly can train the body and mind to manage emotional surges more effectively, providing a sense of control even in the most overwhelming moments. Beyond immediate coping strategies, long-term emotional regulation requires understanding emotional triggers and learning to manage them proactively. Emotional triggers are specific situations, words, or experiences that provoke a strong emotional reaction, often rooted in past experiences or deeply held beliefs. For example, someone who was often criticized as a child might feel intense anger or defensiveness when receiving constructive feedback as an adult. By identifying personal triggers, you can gain insight into the emotional patterns that govern your reactions. The best way to do this is through self-reflection, keeping a journal of moments when emotions felt particularly intense, noting what happened, how you felt, and what thoughts arose. Over time, patterns will emerge, allowing you to anticipate and prepare for situations that might provoke strong emotions. Instead of being blindsided by an emotional reaction, you will be able to recognize it as a trigger and respond with greater awareness. Another long-term strategy for managing negative emotions is building emotional resilience, the ability to adapt to stress, adversity, and setbacks without being overwhelmed. Resilience is not about avoiding difficulties, but about developing the internal strength to face them without being consumed by negative emotions. One way to build resilience is through developing a growth mindset, which involves viewing challenges as opportunities for learning rather than as personal failures. When faced with a difficult situation, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this experience? Shifting your mindset in this way reduces feelings of helplessness and empowers you to take constructive action rather than dwelling on negativity. Additionally, practicing gratitude can counterbalance negative emotions by shifting focus toward the positive aspects of life. Studies have shown that individuals who regularly practice gratitude whether through journaling or simply taking a moment each day to acknowledge things they are grateful for, experience lower levels of stress and greater overall happiness. Finally, one of the most overlooked yet essential aspects of emotional regulation is self-compassion. Many people are incredibly hard on themselves when experiencing negative emotions, judging themselves for feeling too emotional or too weak. However, self-criticism only intensifies emotional distress. Practicing self-compassion means treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer a friend. Instead of berating yourself for feeling anxious, acknowledge that anxiety is a natural response to uncertainty. Instead of feeling ashamed of anger, recognize that anger often signals a personal boundary being crossed. The way you talk to yourself during difficult emotional moments matters. Choosing self-compassion over self-judgment can make all the difference in your ability to navigate challenges with resilience and grace. Managing negative emotions is not about eliminating them, but about learning to work with them in a way that empowers rather than hinders you. By mastering cognitive reframing, grounding techniques, breath work, emotional trigger awareness, resilience building, and self-compassion, you equip yourself with a powerful toolkit for self-regulation. As we continue through this chapter, we will explore the role of mindfulness in self-regulation and how present moment awareness can be a transformative tool for emotional mastery. Learning to manage emotions is an ongoing journey, but with practice and intentionality, it is a journey that leads to profound personal growth and emotional freedom. Chapter 14. The Role of Mindfulness in Self-Regulation. In a world filled with distractions, overstimulation, and a constant barrage of information, the ability to regulate emotions is more challenging than ever. Our minds are often pulled in multiple directions, replaying past mistakes, worrying about the future, or reacting impulsively to present stressors. This mental chaos makes emotional self-regulation difficult, as we become entangled in automatic responses, rather than responding with intention and clarity. One of the most powerful tools for overcoming this reactive state is mindfulness, the practice of bringing full attention to the present moment without judgment. Mindfulness is not merely a relaxation technique or a fleeting trend. It is a scientifically backed practice that enhances emotional intelligence, strengthens self-regulation, and cultivates a profound sense of inner peace. The ability to be present with our emotions, rather than controlled by them, is the cornerstone of emotional mastery. At its core, mindfulness is about awareness. When we operate on autopilot, emotions tend to dictate our actions without our conscious input. A sudden burst of frustration leads to a harsh reply. A wave of anxiety triggers avoidance. A feeling of sadness results in withdrawing from loved ones. These patterns occur because we are not fully present with our emotions as they arise. Instead, we react instinctively, driven by unconscious habits. Mindfulness interrupts this automatic cycle by creating space between stimulus and response. When practiced regularly, it allows us to observe our emotions with clarity, recognize their triggers, and choose a more intentional way of responding. This ability to pause and observe rather than react impulsively is at the heart of self-regulation. One of the most immediate ways mindfulness aids self-regulation is through breath awareness. The breath is deeply intertwined with emotional states. When we are stressed or anxious, our breathing becomes shallow and rapid, signaling the nervous system to remain in a state of alertness. Conversely, when we are calm, our breathing is slow and steady. Mindful breathing is a simple yet powerful technique that allows us to regulate emotions in real time. The next time you feel overwhelmed by an intense emotion, whether it be anger, anxiety, or frustration, pause and take 3 deep, slow breaths. Inhale deeply through your nose, hold for a moment, and exhale slowly through your mouth. With each breath, bring your attention fully to the sensation of air moving in and out of your body. This practice anchors your mind to the present and signals your nervous system to shift from a reactive state to a more balanced, regulated state. Over time, this simple habit rewires the brain's response to stress, allowing you to navigate emotional challenges with greater composure. Beyond breath awareness, mindful observation of emotions is a critical aspect of self-regulation. Instead of being swept away by an emotion, mindfulness teaches us to observe it with curiosity and detachment. Imagine emotions as waves in the ocean. They rise, peak, and eventually subside. When you practice mindfulness, you learn to surf these emotional waves rather than being pulled under by them. The next time you feel a strong emotion, try this exercise. Instead of reacting immediately, take a moment to acknowledge the emotion without judgment. Say to yourself, "I am feeling anger right now," or "I notice that sadness is present." Rather than identifying with the emotion, "I am angry," you shift into an observer's mindset. "I am experiencing anger." This subtle change in perspective creates distance between you and the emotion, preventing it from hijacking your actions. Over time, you develop the ability to engage with emotions without being consumed by them. Another powerful mindfulness practice for emotional regulation is body scanning, which involves bringing attention to physical sensations in different areas of the body. Often, emotions manifest as physical tension before we are even consciously aware of them. Stress may appear as tightness in the chest, anxiety as restlessness in the hands, or anger as clenching of the jaw. By regularly practicing a body scan, you become attuned to these early signals, allowing you to address emotions before they escalate. To practice, find a quiet space, close your eyes, and slowly move your awareness from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. Notice any areas of tension or discomfort, and simply observe them without trying to change anything. This practice cultivates an intimate connection with your emotional landscape, making it easier to regulate emotions as they arise. Mindful acceptance is another essential component of emotional self-regulation. Many people struggle with negative emotions, not because of the emotions themselves, but because they resist them. When we judge ourselves for feeling anxious, try to suppress sadness, or deny anger, we inadvertently intensify these emotions. Mindfulness teaches that emotions, like all experiences, are temporary. Instead of resisting, we can allow emotions to be present without clinging to them or pushing them away. The next time you experience discomfort, try sitting with the emotion instead of reacting to it. Say to yourself, "It's okay that I feel this way right now." Notice how allowing the emotion to exist without resistance often leads to its natural dissipation. This approach prevents emotional buildup, reducing the likelihood of outbursts or prolonged distress. The long-term benefits of mindfulness for self-regulation are profound. Neuroscientific research has shown that consistent mindfulness practice physically alters the brain, strengthening the prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational thinking and impulse control, while reducing activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear and stress center. These changes enhance overall emotional stability, reducing the likelihood of being overwhelmed by negative emotions. Furthermore, mindfulness fosters emotional resilience, allowing you to bounce back from setbacks without being emotionally derailed. It cultivates patience, reducing reactivity in high-pressure situations. It strengthens self-awareness, making it easier to recognize when emotions are clouding judgment. Most importantly, it empowers you with the ability to remain grounded in the present, reducing anxiety about the future and regret about the past. Incorporating mindfulness into daily life does not require long meditation sessions or drastic lifestyle changes. Even small moments of mindfulness, pausing before reacting, taking a deep breath during stress, observing emotions without judgment, can have a significant impact on self-regulation. With consistent practice, mindfulness becomes more than just a tool. It becomes a way of being. By training the mind to remain present and engaged with emotions in a balanced way, you cultivate the inner strength to navigate life's challenges with greater ease and clarity. As we move forward in this chapter, we will explore the final pillar of self-regulation, handling stress and anxiety effectively. While mindfulness provides a strong foundation for emotional balance, stress is an inevitable part of life, and knowing how to manage it effectively is crucial for long-term well-being. Understanding the physiological effects of stress, learning healthy coping mechanisms, and developing a personalized stress management plan will ensure that emotions remain under control, even in the most demanding situations. Chapter 15. How to continuously improve your EQ. Emotional intelligence is not a destination, but a continuous journey, one of self-discovery, refinement, and mastery. Unlike a skill that can be perfected with a finite amount of practice, emotional intelligence is an evolving capacity shaped by life's experiences, challenges, and personal growth. The reality is that no matter how emotionally intelligent one becomes, there will always be new triggers to manage, new relationships to navigate, and new layers of self-awareness to uncover. The process of mastering emotional intelligence is akin to sculpting a work of art. It requires patience, persistence, and a commitment to refining one's approach over time. Understanding this is critical because it shifts the mindset from viewing EQ as something one either has or lacks to recognizing it as an ever-deepening ability that can be strengthened with conscious effort. To continuously improve emotional intelligence, one must first cultivate a mindset of lifelong learning. Many people believe that personal growth plateaus at a certain age, or that emotional intelligence is something that develops naturally over time. However, true mastery requires an intentional commitment to learning and self-improvement. This means remaining curious about one's emotions, seeking feedback from others, and embracing opportunities for personal development. A highly effective way to maintain this mindset is to adopt a beginner's approach to emotional intelligence, remaining open to new insights, questioning one's assumptions, and continuously refining one's understanding of emotions and human interactions. Even those who are considered emotionally intelligent leaders or experts recognize that they are still students of EQ, constantly learning and evolving in response to life's ever-changing circumstances. One of the most effective strategies for ongoing EQ growth is self-reflection. Developing the habit of regularly examining one's emotions, reactions, and interpersonal experiences allows for deeper self-awareness and continued refinement of emotional skills. This can take many forms, from daily journaling to guided introspection. Journaling is particularly powerful as it provides a space to process emotions, recognize recurring patterns, and track personal growth over time. A useful method is the emotional check-in, where one takes a few minutes each day to ask, "What emotions did I experience today? How did I respond to them? Were there moments where I could have handled a situation more effectively?" Over time, this practice builds a heightened sense of emotional awareness, making it easier to regulate emotions and navigate relationships with greater wisdom and intention. In addition to self-reflection, one must actively seek feedback from others. Emotional intelligence is not developed in isolation. It is honed through interactions and relationships. While self-awareness is a critical component of EQ, it is equally important to understand how one's emotions, words, and actions impact those around us. However, self-perception is often limited. We may believe we are handling situations with emotional intelligence, while others may perceive our responses differently. Constructive feedback is a powerful tool for gaining new perspectives and identifying blind spots. Developing a habit of asking trusted colleagues, friends, or mentors questions like, "How do you experience me emotionally? Are there times when I come across as reactive or dismissive? How can I improve my emotional awareness in our interactions?" fosters a cycle of continuous improvement. The ability to receive feedback with an open mind, rather than defensiveness, is a mark of true emotional intelligence and growth. Another key aspect of EQ mastery is developing emotional resilience. Life will inevitably present challenges, setbacks, disappointments, conflicts, and personal losses. The emotionally intelligent individual does not seek to avoid these difficulties, but rather learns to navigate them with strength and grace. Building resilience involves cultivating a mindset that views challenges as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to happiness. One effective way to develop resilience is through reframing, choosing to see difficulties from a different perspective. For example, instead of viewing failure as a reflection of personal inadequacy, one can see it as a learning experience that provides valuable insights for future success. Likewise, instead of allowing negative emotions to overwhelm one's state of mind, an emotionally intelligent individual acknowledges the emotion, processes it, and then consciously decides how to move forward. This ability to shift perspective and remain adaptable in the face of adversity is what separates those who are emotionally reactive from those who are emotionally masterful. In addition to mental and emotional strategies, physical well-being plays a crucial role in emotional intelligence. The mind and body are deeply interconnected, and one's emotional state is directly influenced by physical health. Poor sleep, high stress, unhealthy eating habits, and a sedentary lifestyle all contribute to heightened emotional reactivity and decreased self-regulation. To continuously improve EQ, one must cultivate habits that support emotional balance, such as regular exercise, proper nutrition, and adequate rest. Mindfulness practices like meditation and breathwork also contribute to emotional stability by calming the nervous system and increasing one's capacity to remain present. The more one takes care of the body, the easier it becomes to manage emotions with clarity and composure. Finally, continuous EQ improvement requires practicing emotional intelligence in real-world situations. Reading about emotional intelligence, reflecting on personal growth, and engaging in self-awareness exercises are valuable. But true mastery comes from applying EQ principles in daily life. This means actively practicing empathy in conversations, choosing to regulate emotions in difficult moments, and making a conscious effort to improve communication skills. One of the best ways to do this is to set small, intentional EQ challenges each week. For instance, one might decide to focus on listening without interrupting in all conversations for a week, or to practice pausing before reacting to emotional triggers. Over time, these small intentional actions build into long-term emotional mastery. Emotional intelligence is not something one achieves and then sets aside. It is an ongoing, lifelong journey. Every interaction, every challenge, and every emotional experience presents an opportunity to learn and grow. By embracing this mindset, developing habits of self-reflection, seeking feedback, building resilience, maintaining physical well-being, and applying EQ principles in daily life, one continues to refine and strengthen emotional intelligence over time. True mastery is not about perfection, but about progress. Choosing each day to engage with emotions and relationships with greater awareness, wisdom, and intentionality.